This camera was the topic of an In the Box episode, and it's time to do some work on it. So the first thing I'm going to do today is we're going to replace the foam seals. Actually, I'm going to replace the foam seals, and the process is the same regardless of what camera. This will be presented as two videos. The first video will cover removing the old foam seals, and the second video will cover installing the new foam seals. Now this really points out the difference between German and Japanese cameras. German cameras have never used foam seals in the back. They have used the foam bumper in the mirror box, but they've never used a foam seals in the back to block light. And the reason is that the backs on a German camera use a labyrinth design, and also some of the way the back is made is that it is made in such a way that it does block light, whereas Japanese cameras use a bit less metal, and because they use a bit less metal, they had to figure out a way to block light, and hence the use of foam. Now, the foam that they use has a tendency after several decades to either dry out and become very crumbly and brittle, or to turn to a goo. It's sort of like a tar-like substance. So we'll see what they look like on this camera. I sort of looked, but I didn't really look super closely. So first thing we're going to do is remove the lens, because we don't need that. We're not going to use it. It's just going to be in the way. This has a bayonet mount lens, but no matter what it has, you still want to remove that. The tools I'm going to be using today are actually fairly basic. I'm going to use a pencil. That's to mark something. I have this popsicle stick that I've knocked down. So what I've done with the edge is I've put a little bit of a chisel edge on it. And this is going to be to remove large pieces of foam. Then you'll need a couple small screwdrivers. And I also use this one tool. I would say a little tiny screwdriver will work just as well. I use this tool to push the foam down into the channels. Finally, you are going to need a pair of scissors, an X-Acto knife if you have one. That can be bought at a craft store. Also, a straight edge. Ruler works fine, or another straight edge, whatever you happen to have. And a cutting surface, so you can use the cutting board from your kitchen. The material used is non-toxic, so you don't have to worry about that. And then finally, the material itself. Available are pre-cut strips of foam, but they're of the same type of foam that you will remove. I've been using this craft material, and I've been using this probably for 18-20 years, and I've never had a problem with it. I believe this is 1 millimeter thickness, and it comes in these 9x12 sheets. It used to be sold under the brand name of Foamies. Where I bought it, at a craft store, they dropped it, and they've been going with this less expensive made in China brand, but it's proven to be just as effective. I think this is 1 millimeter. Let me check real quickly. And we'll check it using a digital micrometer. Let's see, let's set this up to millimeters. There we are. This might actually be, this reads as 2.3 millimeters. However, if you remove the paper backing, it probably is 2 millimeters. So I was wrong. It looks like it's a 2 millimeter thickness material. So your first job, of course, is to remove the old foam material. Oh, the last thing that you're probably going to need is you're going to need some lighter fluid. So a can of this, they sell this, and this was a very large can, but a can of this will last you for years. And it really depends on how many cameras you're working on. So if you use reading glasses or whatever, put them on now. All right, there's a strip. In this case, this camera, generally there is going to be a single strip. And it's going to run from here to here. it's almost always 4 centimeters wide. Yes, it is. It's 4 centimeters wide. But this camera is a bit different in that it's split. So no matter, we'll still have to remove that. If you have a nice set of small screwdrivers, it always helps. Essentially what you're doing is you're just getting under it and you're pushing off the old material. And you see it right there. Oh, the other thing you'll want is you'll want either a paper towel or some tissues. I use a lot of plain white tissues because they're also useful for cleaning lenses. And that would be plain white, no lotion, no scent, no nothing. So after you try to, there's some adhesive on here, and if you use your small screwdriver as a small chisel, you can remove most of the adhesive. If you have a blower or some compressed air, you can also use this to get any of the small particles that we'll be removing. This is the more delicate part because it is your focusing screen and your mirror. So just move that camera away from your workspace a little bit. In this case, I'll leave it here just so you can see. And I'm just using a real short burst of compressed air. And you can see some of the particles that have landed here. The next thing I'll do, you know what, let me get some shop towels. You can use tissues, but shop towels I think are going to be cheaper in the long run, if you have them. By shop towels I mean these. These are those blue paper towels that they sell either in home improvement or auto stores or auto parts stores. I like using shop towels because they're just a bit sturdier than your normal paper towel. So take this wet portion of your, just wet a corner of it, and all you're going to do is you're just going to wipe down that part. Wipe down that section where you just removed the foam. And you're trying to remove as much debris and other things as possible. That actually looks pretty clean in there. So let me hit that again one more time. I take my time when I do this because we're not in a race. Yeah, that's pretty clean. Let me wipe that one more time. This is a little bit of felt. This is somewhat unusual. You don't usually see felt right here, but there is some small felt right on the face. So the felt would be an anti-reflection material. You could either use a small brush, or even if you had an old toothbrush, an old clean toothbrush, you could use that to remove whatever dust and debris you have in here. All right, that's nice and clean. Let's get all the dust out of there. Now we're going to go into the back. If the back removes, that of course is easier, but not all cameras have a removable back. And in fact, this one is not removable. You'll notice that the foam now goes under the pressure plate. So the first thing I usually do, if possible, is you can remove the pressure plate. Let me see if, oh yes, this is removable. Let's see how this does. Let's see, is this one going to come out easily? Does not appear so. So, if it doesn't want to come out easily, don't force it. That's generally good advice for dealing with any camera. Never force anything. we can see on this camera how there's foam here, and then there's foam here. But there's none down here, which is a bit unusual, but there is foam in the channels, and you can see it's very dried. In fact, I'll just take this little screwdriver, and we'll run it in here. There we go. And there's some of it right there. You can see how this foam is very dried out. So as it comes out, just pull it out with your hands. And once again, try to get that old adhesive up if possible. Now, the one thing you want to be careful of is you don't want to get film into the film chamber or into the shutter assembly. So if you want, one thing you can do is you can get a piece of that blue masking tape, or blue painter's tape. If you cut it a little bit long, you can make a little tab and just put it across the film gate. So this will ensure that as you work, nothing gets into the shutter. Sometimes this comes up cleanly and you don't have to do that, but other times it comes out in pieces like this, and it's rather crumbly. The kind that's more of a goo, that's a bit easier to remove. Now we'll get it out of here. See, this is coming out in little chunks. And you can see how that would have gotten into the shutter. Here, you try to get as much as you can. If you can't get all the old adhesive, don't worry about it, because you're going to be pushing a piece of foam down there with self-adhesive, and that will sort of take care of itself. Now here, let me see if I can get under this. Sometimes there's rivets that you have to work around. All right, so that went so-so. So I'm going to use my X-Acto knife and just scrape along that edge. If you happen to have a little pen knife or something, you could always use that. Right, so there's many tools that you can use at your disposal to remove this old foam. Now, some of the old cameras, they actually used yarn to block light. Of course, that material is very easy to work with. Now, I might fast forward some of this, through some of this, just to cut down the amount of time so you don't have to watch me remove foam in real time. Like I said, every camera is different, so you never know exactly what you're going to have. Although you can get an idea if you work with them enough. If you work with enough cameras. If you scrape the paint a little, don't worry about it. Like I said, you're going to be covering up with foam. If you wanted to, you could always get some touch-up paint, and you could touch up that mark. I never worry about it because it is going to be covered by foam and the adhesive on the adhesive backing on the foam. If you see how this looks, this is fairly typical of all the cameras that I've done. Usually I can remove the pressure plate. In this case, though, I think this camera is a sort of an inexpensive model. Or, you know, different camera makers, of course, have different ways of assembling their cameras and components. So it looks like this camera maker did not intend for this pressure plate to be removed. This is actually the more time-consuming part, simply because of the amount of stuff that gets stuck in here. There you go. By the way, if you're ever trying to remove a label from a jar and it's sticky, lighter fluid can help you remove it. It can remove some of that debris that's left over from the label. It doesn't work on all of them, but it does work on the majority of them. So now here's the tricky part. The tricky part is I'd like to get into the channels of this camera with this lighter fluid. So, you know, just take an edge and push it into that channel and run it in. Run it down. Sometimes once you get that lighter fluid in there, it really loosens up that the old adhesive. And you can come back in and scrape it through again. You do want to try to remove as much as possible, with an understanding you're never going to remove all of it. I think I've refoamed probably 25 to 30 cameras, and I've been using the same process, and once completed, I've never had a problem in that years. And this goes back, it doesn't go back decades, but it does, well, actually it does go back about 20 years that I've been doing this. So I guess I could say it goes back decades. I'd really like to remove the top deck of this camera, and so that might be a separate video. There's some dust in the viewfinder that I'd like to clean out, and I'd like to clean the backside, the other side of this eyepiece of the viewfinder. But first, let's take care of these old foam seals. All right. Alright, I do happen to have a toothbrush, so I'm going to get in this channel and brush it out. This is what I mean by an old toothbrush. It's clean, but doesn't have any toothpaste or anything else. I've actually gone out and bought a couple of toothbrushes, you know, in those like dollar stores, and they work fine for cameras. Get a soft bristled brush, however. I don't know if I did down here. I think I did. Let's hit it again. And with these paper towels, after you're finished, you just throw them out. You don't have to worry about washing them or anything else. And there's no reason to save them. They've served their purpose. Okay, I think we're pretty well finished. Hit this one more time. Yeah, there's a little bit more adhesive in here. I do try to remove what I can. But with an understanding, I'm never going to remove all of it. Okay, that's good. Now let's clean up this work surface. This is pretty messy, isn't it? In the next video, I'll cover installing the new foam seals. Until then, keep on taking photographs.